Hi everyone. Okay, this is going to be labeled 9.6. The lesson in Con is called Solving Quadratics by Factoring. The exercise that you need to do for this lesson is called Quadratics by Factoring Intro. This video I think is going to be mostly background and your understanding of why we are doing what we're doing. So when they're talking about solving quadratics, they actually talk about finding three things that are all the same thing. There are three different words for what we're finding. So some people will talk about zeros. Some people will call them roots. I like roots because what we're finding just is on the x-axis, and it almost kind of feels like they're holding that parabola, which is the shape of a quadratic, into the graph. And then the term that we like, or that I feel like is almost most mathematical, is finding the x-intercepts. Okay, so we've done this before, and it's what happens on the x-axis. So when you're solving, you're going to, what we're really doing is you'll see these equations that look like this, and they'll have some number, you know, like 3x squared plus 4x plus 5. Okay, and you know, let's say that the picture looks like this. So this is your parabola. Since it's a little 2, and you'll learn this in Algebra 3-4, it will have 2 intercepts, and so, or x-intercepts. And so these are our roots. And so when you think about that, and I'll repeat this later, you know, what point is this? Well, it's on the x-axis, so x may be 2 or 4 or 100. So we'll call it x1, comma, and then what's my y? Well, I don't go up or down. I'm right on this line, so my y value is 0. So that's really why we're plugging 0 in, because for our x-intercept, our y value is 0. And then for this one, this can just be like x2, comma, 0. And a lot of times you'll see these R1 and R2, and that goes back to calling them roots. So we're finding the zeros, roots, or x-intercepts. And all they are is the 2. So roots, like they're holding that parabola into the x-axis. I feel like this is where math gets really fun. There's a lot of interesting applications that can be done. Lots of them have to do with balls, shooting balls, and sports. So like basketball is an arc, it makes a parabola. You're launching a rocket, you're launching a water balloon. There's a diver that maybe goes off the board and then dives into the water. Economic business models, you know, the prices go up, and the sales go up until we hit a certain price, and then they'll go down as we get, you know, more expensive. So a couple things. Again, these are our roots, or our x-intercepts, or our zeros. This is always like the height. So that is called the vertex. Everybody say vertex. And it's the highest or lowest point. Later on, you'll call it the maximum or the minimum. So if you look at this one, this vertex is the maximum point, or the highest point. If you look at this one, the U-shaped parabola, this would be the vertex that is the minimum. And then we have a nice symmetry here. So a parabola is symmetrical, and it's through the vertex. So the vertex is always exactly halfway between. So I made these at 0 and 10. So then my axis of symmetry will be at x equals 5. So again, this will be, so this is 5, comma 32. And our axis of symmetry is that x equals 5. And it'll always be x equals something. So this is all for kind of later. And the vocabulary gets really important later so that you know what people are talking about. Some more intro. So we're talking about a parabola. I always think of this as an upside down parabola. And there's certain parts on this. So this part right here, even down to this 0 or this root, it's like imaginary. So if we're talking about an object, so let's call this path of an object. A basketball, you kick a soccer ball, you hit a baseball. So right here is how high off the ground did the object start. Height, off ground, at, it's really time 0. So this is always going to be some kind of time. And you know, when it's a basketball or a soccer ball or even a rocket, it's usually seconds. So the x-axis is time. The y-axis is height. So none of this doesn't exist. It just fills out or rounds out the shape of the quadratic function, and it might help make the equation. So like, you know, doesn't matter, doesn't exist. So of course we see it, but it's kind of like negative numbers. We don't know it exists until we need to know them. Let's talk about at the vertex. So at the top point, so this is the maximum right here. This is a vertex that's called a maximum because it's the highest point. And so this tells me when is object highest. And the y value says how high is object. Okay. And then down here, again, x value is when object hits ground. And this is and how long it was in the air. So for something like a baseball, you know, here's the bat, cracks the bat, goes all the way up and comes down to the ground. Or maybe this is a pool of water and the diver dives up and then comes splashing down. Okay, this is it for the first video of giving you background about what exactly a quadratic function looks like and some key vocabulary.